There was a husband and wife who were having some really difficult times. And they'd been married for 20 years, and they decided to go to a marriage counselor. And they went to the marriage counselor, and the wife started to talk first. And she let on this tirade of how miserable she was in the marriage, that her husband never paid any attention to her, he didn't include her. She went through 20 minutes of saying all the things was wrong and how badly she felt. She just didn't feel validated at all. And after about 20 minutes, the psychiatrist got up behind his desk, walked over to her, grabbed her, bent her over, and gave her a beautiful big kiss with her husband looking on. And then he said to the husband, okay, at least 3 times a week, this is what I want you to do. Husband looked at her and said, well, I could bring her in on Monday and Wednesday, but Fridays I fish. Have you ever noticed that there's not exactly good communications between people, that they seem a little different, that things are not exactly the way they're supposed to be? Well, that's because we're living our lives from a totally different point of view. We don't understand that we are creating our lives by how we focus our attention, by where our thought is going. And if we wanted to change what's out there, all we have to do is change what's in here, what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and where our attention is. And we're going to go over that a little bit tonight, starting here. Have you ever thought about buying a Cadillac and then saw Cadillacs in every place that you went? Isn't it amazing when you focus your attention, you all of a sudden see what you're focusing your attention on. And you may have done this and seen all these Cadillacs because you're really focusing on this idea of Cadillac, and you look in the newspaper to see what's playing at Ruth Eckerd Hall, and guess what? It's the Cadillacs. Because there is this thing about the universe that when you are focusing on something, it is literally delivering to you what you're focusing on. Maybe you don't get that Cadillac you want, but I will tell you, you can tell the universe is working on it because you begin to see more, because your neighbor gets one, because things are happening. And if you don't say, oh, he got the Cadillac, you say, good, this is good. There's more Cadillacs in my life, and sooner or later, it's going to be yours if you keep your attention and your focus. We are creating our own experience. By what we focus on. We are creating our own experience. We are creating our own world that we live in. Quantum physics says we are actually affecting the entire universe, not just our perception of it. If you want to live the right life, you have to be able to accept everyone and everything unconditionally. Accept everyone and everything unconditionally, because you were the one that created it in the first place. The time that an experience happens, when you're experiencing something, whether it be a car wreck or a raise, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad, when you're experiencing it, it came from the thinking you were doing. Once it's out there, you can't change it. You cannot undo something that's been outpictured into the world. So why not just accept it? It doesn't make any differences there because since you created it in the first place, then you can recreate it. You can only change your future in the present moment. Now is the time that you're creating your future. You cannot create the past. It's already done. You can't even create this moment here except how you feel. But if you want events in your life that you want, you have to be focusing on them as if they were now. Not saying, in the future, I'll have a Cadillac. It's the Cadillac is mine now. And you feel as if it was actually true. That starts the processes of the universe delivering what you're looking for. Let's take this little guy, and we saw this slide in an earlier part of the presentation, but I think we need to be reminded of this. This little fellow right here has a computer. We'll say that's his mind, his subconscious mind particularly. He's got a little projector, and he's projecting out on the screen that we call life, that we call events. And then he sees those events, and then, of course, he takes them into himself. They go back into his computer, and he thinks about them, and they go back into the projector, and he projects it out again. And this is a process. So when something's wrong and you're seeing it and you're talking about how wrong it is, you're just recreating it again and again. That's the cycle we need to break, because this is what we're doing all of the time, all of us. So we want to have an interruption here. Now, this little fellow is going along, and things seem to be fine, and all of a sudden, from his past, he drugs up a negative experience, and pow, there it is right out in front of him. Now, since he hasn't had this class, he gets upset and angry. And what does he do? He doesn't accept it. He doesn't accept that it's actually there and there's nothing he can do about it. It's already there. He says, this is wrong. As he's saying this is wrong, he's just creating another one and another and another. Now, this guy, he's different. He took the class. And he brings up something from his past. It's a bad event. He looks it out there and he says, isn't that interesting? Doesn't he? All right. And he changes, he pivots, he accepts it. Yeah, that's the way it is. He changes his attitude. And what does he do? He changes the way he feels. And when he changes the way he feels, he creates something new, something better, something that he wanted. Now, the neat thing is if he can hold that, not only does he create the new things, but literally as he gets rid of the ideas, those things dissolve, go out of his life, literally forever. Have you ever noticed that you got a job, you quit your job because you hated that boss, he was really bad, and you got another job, and it was the same kind of boss, maybe even a different gender, but same boss over and over again? What's the common denominator? You are. So it is the thinking that needs to be changed. Now, you have two choices. When something's out there and it's not what you want, you can fix it or you can recreate it. Those are your two choices. You can get in and solve the problem and think about the problem. And you may actually solve the problem as you're creating a new one just like it. Or you can recreate something new. So we're going to forget about fixing and start working on recreating. And take a look at that word, recreate. If you take the dash out, look what you're doing. Recreate. Do you know that we're here on a trip that's supposed to be fun and joyful? It's all supposed to be a great place to be, and yet we have free will. We have absolute free will to mess it up if we want to, by the way we think, or not. When you are down at the lowest level, this little wheel has at the very bottom powerlessness, and then it has unworthiness, depression. Each from a bottom all the way to the top, as you raise your consciousness, as you raise your state of being to a higher and higher state of being, you are increasing your ability to attract what you want. When you're down at that powerlessness and unworthiness and depression, when you're in depression, you can't create anything except more depression. And as you get up to the top, peace, if you could stay up there, your creative powers are so great that they're almost instantaneous. When you're totally at peace, things just work, one after the other after the other. Understanding that you're in a joyful state and you're driving down the road, everything's great, your world is doing real good, and then this happens. You hear that siren, zip, guilt, oh, what did I do wrong? That thought comes over you. And you look at that car, but let's say that you've taken this class, so you know better than that. You say, I got to get myself up to a higher state. Here you are one day, you're at joy, and all of a sudden, this happens. Your energy goes down, but you know better, so you start to build your energy up. And you get up to at least positive expectations. And as you begin to think positively and think of what's right, all of a sudden, someone comes along and helps you. Now, this exact scenario happened to me. I have a friend by the name of Leroy Lowell, who's a minister. And in fact, we were in school together, we're classmates. And Leroy went to a church in Kansas City, and I had one in Independence. And I had never heard Leroy speak. Now, usually when you're in class with about 30 people, you get to hear everybody speak. And for some reason, I never was in one of the classes he was in where he was speaking. And we were talking about this. So Lauren and I were visiting, he and his wife, Pat. And I said, you know, Leroy, I've never heard one of your talks. He said, well, here's a couple of tapes. This is to show you how long that was. They're tapes, not CDs. He gave me a tape to listen to. And Lauren and I are driving back. It's about a 30-mile drive. And I put the tape in and I'm listening to it. And here's Leroy telling about a situation that happened to him. He was teaching a class every Wednesday night. And he loved the class. And every Wednesday night after the class was over, the whole class, he who was instructing it and all the people that were in it went out and had coffee and pie, all at the same place. They enjoyed doing that. Well, right after the class this one Wednesday, it just so happened Leroy had something he needed to do, so he said to everybody in the class, go ahead to the restaurant. I've got something I need to do in my office. I'll join you in just a few minutes. And he went in and did what he needed to do. And when he came out, he had a flat tire. Now, he'd been asked by the people, can we drive? He said, no, I'll take care of it. He had a flat tire. Now, remember, Lauren and I are in the car driving, and the tape is going along to this point where he said he had a flat tire. And when he said the word flat tire, pow, on Interstate, I think it was 40, and it was so fast and so quick that I couldn't pull over. I had to pull into the center median. Well, Lauren and I started to laugh. We thought, Leroy won't believe this, how powerful he is. He said flat tire, and pow, our tire went out. And we are laughing. I didn't have a cell phone then. So I thought, well, I'm just going to put a sign up that said call AAA. So I got a piece of paper out, and I put the word C on it. And a truck drove up right behind me, and it wasn't Verizon, but it was one of those kind of trucks like that. And the guy says, well, you've got a flat tire? And I said, well, yeah, I do. And I just had a hernia operation 2 days before, so I wasn't going to be changing that tire. And he said, well, I'll take care of it for you. And I never saw anybody change a tire so completely and so fast as that young man did. And I said, well, can I pay you? He said, oh, no, not at all. And he drove off. Now, it was amazing. If I had been upset and said, why is this happening now? It's dark. If I had said all those things, I'd still be sitting there. But because we took it as a joke, because we were happy, because we thought it was so funny, our mind was focused on something that brought our energy way up high. And that high energy attracted to us what we needed at that time. And that is true for you too. If you can switch in the middle of one of these so-called disasters, you're going to be able to change your life very quickly. Now, there are 3 legs to the triangle that we need to work with. One is our state of desire. Our state of desire is our focus of our mind on what we want to happen, what we want to produce, what kind of relationships we have, the ability to focus uninterruptedly, not thinking, I would love to have a job where I made more money, and then start thinking about all the bills. You just blew it out. You hadn't focused. You have to keep your desire on what you want without interrupting it. When Jesus was talking about moving mountains, he said, if you had the faith of a mustard seed, and if you can believe without doubt, doubt is the killer. Maybe this will work and maybe it won't. That's the killer. The second part is our state of being. Our state of being is how we feel. Joyful, happy, wonderful, any of those things, or sad, depressed, angry, enraged. Those are totally different energies. And the one energy, the joyful energy, creates what we want to happen, and the other literally blocks what we want to happen and aids what's wrong. It reinforces all the things that are already wrong when we're down there in those dumps. And the other thing is the state of allowing. This is a very important one. This is one that Abraham talks about a lot, and I think it's the key to what he says. Allowing is the art, and it's an art, of letting everything happen and not being upset by anything. It's just allowing it. They say, no, wait a minute, I can't do that. If someone gets me upset, they say this or this, why can't I do something about it? Yes, you can. You have free will. You can tell them to go to hell or whatever you want. You can decide. But if your attitude goes down, if you're angry when you say that, you are going to create more stuff for you. So the art of allowing is allowing things to happen the way they happen without trying to change them. That seems almost counterintuitive. Well, can I get better things in my life? Yes, but not by changing what's already done. By recreating what you want and letting what's done go. Now this art, the state of desire, is what actually forms what you're trying to get. In other words, the form, the shape of it is what your desire creates. The state of being is what energizes that form, which gives it the energies to come forward. And the state of allowing is what permits it into your life. So if you do the first two, that's fine. And this is where most people get hung up. They say, I've been thinking about this thing. I've been focusing on it. I've been doing all these things. I'm keeping myself at a high state of mind, but I don't want these bad things to happen that are happening. That's not allowing. You have to allow. That's the third and most important step that you have to do. Allowing is all or nothing state. You can't allow the good stuff and disallow the bad stuff. You have to literally allow it all. What's happening is happening. You do not have to go through a negative experience. If you have a negative experience coming in your life, you have to accept it. But you don't necessarily have to go through it. Because if you focus on what you want, if you will accept it as it is, it will change. It will even dissolve. It will be taken care of for you, or you'll be given a wonderful idea on how to take care of it. The key is to allow what's ever in your life to be there. It's your trip. You're on a trip here. You're taking a trip through this place we call life. And it's supposed to be fun. Let's take a look at this. This is the water cycle. You have the ocean here, and water evaporates up into the air, and it condenses into clouds. And then those clouds shift across the land, and they dump the rain onto the land. And what does the land do? Well, it lets it run off either underground or on the surface back into the water and accumulate. And then it starts a cycle over and over again. You, as a human being, are in a very similar cycle. You came from the ocean we call God. You're going to wind up back there, or call it the kingdom of heaven, or whatever you like. That's where you came from. You are here now going through a process, and you're going to go back there. That is, there's no hell unless you make it. So let's say that you were up there in the cloud, in the great ocean of spirit, and you came down as an individual drop of rain. And then you fell to the ground and joined some other drops, and you began to go down the river and flow from one place to another. You're taking this wonderful trip, and we're supposed to be enjoying this flow, this trip, as we're moving along. The scenery is different as we go along. It's a fun trip, and we flow from one place to the next place to the next place for a whole lifetime, expanding as far as we let it expand, going as many places as we decide to go, into greater and greater water, and back into that ocean again, right where we started from. Scientists are calling this the field. There's a field of energy that everything comes out of, and goes back into. All the electrons, all the little particles are literally flashing on and off, in and out of this field that exists in the entire universe. We're part of that field. Jesus referred to that field as the kingdom of heaven. It's not a place, it's a state of mind. And you are alive today in a body, in a spacesuit, and yet you were alive before you had this spacesuit on. You were alive and you came through a door that we call birth. Now you were alive before, and you're alive in this life, just as alive as you were, and really only different except that you had this bulky spacesuit on that you have to operate here in time-space, and you go through your period of time here, this long hallway we call life, and then you go out another door called death. And what that door is, you take the spacesuit off. You're the same as you were before you were born. You are the same while you're living here, except you got the spacesuit on, and you're the same afterwards. If you understand that, if you can really feel that, you understand that nothing can happen to you. Something can happen to the spacesuit, and we can think terrible thoughts and create all kind of diseases in our spacesuit if we want, or we can not. That's the choice. All of you got the instructions for how to live life. You got the instructions. You got them when you were 3 or 4 years old. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to sing the instructions for life. Are you ready? I think we better help them. The instructions are:
row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream.
Now, just what part of those instructions didn't you understand? Row whose boat? Your wife's boat? Your husband's? Say that? Row your children's boat? Whose boat do you row? Your boat, right. And which way, how do you row it? Hard, vigorously, working hard? Gently. And in which direction? Against the current, the force of life? Up the stream? No. Down the stream. And what is your attitude? Merrily, merrily, merrily. And why? Life is but a dream. Isn't that easy? That is literally it. Now, I wanted to sing the song one more time, only we're going to sing it with slightly different words. These are Abraham-approved words. Instead of row, 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 we're going to sing flow, flow, flow your boat. Are you ready?
Flow, flow, flow your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream.
Downstream feels good. Upstream feels bad. And you know when you're rowing against the current, when you're not feeling good, and it doesn't matter what you're thinking about or who, if you're thinking negative thoughts about yourself or somebody else, it doesn't make any difference. Your feelings, which are your key, change and let you know, I am out of sync with what I really want to have, what I really desire in my life. So you know we're going to go downstream and not upstream. Life is a flow. It's a trip. It's fun. It's a vacation. And we're supposed to be enjoying it. Going with that flow. There was a man who lived about 500 or 600 years ago, and he lived in a little village. And it was a very poor village. They were all peasants. They had nothing. A little house and grew enough food to survive on. The whole village was that way, except this man was considered rich because he was the only person in the village who owned a horse. And everybody would say to him, isn't it fortunate that you own a horse? And he would say to them, well, maybe it is, or maybe it isn't. Well, one day, the horse disappeared. He ran away. And everybody in the village came by and said, oh, isn't it terrible that your horse has been missing and you now no longer have a horse? Isn't it bad? And he said, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Well, the very next day, the horse came back, and he came back with 3 wild horses. And everybody said, oh, how fortunate you are. Now you have 4 horses. You are so fortunate. And the man said, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Well, the very next day, his son decided to ride one of those 4 wild horses, and he got thrown off and broke his leg. And everybody said, oh, how sad is it that your son has broken his leg? Isn't it terrible? He said, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And the very next day, the men came to draft the young men for the army. Well, the young man with the broken leg couldn't go. And so he didn't have to go to the army. And everybody said together, when the man said, isn't it great that your son didn't have to go into the army? And they said, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Well, because he was the only young man left in the village, he got to marry the most beautiful woman in the village. And everybody said, isn't it fortunate that your son got to marry the most beautiful woman in the village? And everybody said, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Now, I could go on with this forever, and maybe I will, and maybe I won't. You see, that's how life is. It's taking each thing as it comes and working with it, understanding that in the long run, it's just part of this flow that we're in. It's not a tragedy. We all know what to say when we have a tragedy. What do we say? That's interesting. Yeah, and that gives us our right to pivot. Let's talk about one other thing that's very important because there's been some confusion about this. We've gotten a lot of mistraining as to who or what is God. There are 512 different denominations in Christianity. 512 different denominations who worship one God with one Savior. And what makes them different? What they believe about that God. So you can't get a good description. And if you go into other religions, if you go into Judaism, you'll get a different description. If you go into Islam, you get still a different. And if you go into the Buddhists, they don't even recognize a person as God. So what is God? Well, since we come from a Christian tradition, let's take this. This is what the book of Exodus says, that Moses had a little conversation with God, one of the few people who got to talk directly. And Moses said to God, supposing I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they will ask me, what is his name? Then what shall I say to them? God said to Moses, here's his answer. This is his answer to who he is. I am that I am. That is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent you. I am that I am. What does that mean? Well, that's not what God said. You see, those words, I am that I am, are English words. And this event was supposedly taking place about 3,000 years ago. English didn't come into existence until about 1,500 years ago, and it was Old English. The English of, say, the year 1100 goes something like this. Ondata Prila with his shori sota, the drought of March has passed to the rota and bathed every vein in swish liqueur, of which virtue engendered is the floor. Do you understand that all? That's Middle English. And Old English was so different, it would be like speaking German or another language. And it was only invented 1,500 years ago, so we know he didn't say, I am that I am. What he did say, because he spoke Hebrew, that's the only language God spoke then, was Hebrew. He said this, Hoya, Hoya. What does that mean? Well, the word Hoya is a verb. God's a verb, not a noun. And it's repeated twice. In the Hebrew language, when the verb is repeated twice, they didn't use adverbs. They used two verbs together to emphasize it. So they wouldn't say that a man ran fast. They would say he ran, to say they were really running. So this is this verb to be. So what he said, we have to kind of interpret it here because we can't tell the tenses of it from the surrounding words in it. But he said hoya, hoya, or he could have said to be. Or he could have said it in the gerund form, being. Or he could have said it, I am. Or he could have said, I was. We don't even know that. He could have said any of those things. He could have said, I am. That's one interpretation. Or he could have said, being. But what if he said both of those? What if what he actually said was, I am being itself? That being everything, being you, being me, being every flower, being everything. What if that's what he meant? Well, you're going to have to decide on what he meant. I'm just giving you the Hebrew words and what the literal translations are. That word hoya, hoya, it also appears in the Bible, in the original Greek translation, or in the original Hebrew of the Bible. And when the King James Version was translated, there are many places where just a single hoya, not two, they're not talking about God, and which would mean being, right? But that was interpreted as this. It came to pass. You notice when you read the old Bible, it says, and it came to pass. That say that over and over again. Well, hoya, that's what hoya means. It means it came to pass. Everything comes to pass. Nothing comes to be permanent. Everything comes to pass. You can have a car. You can say, well, I've got this wonderful car. And I own the car. Think again. Drive that car for a few days or a week and see if it lets you go any further unless it orders you to go to the gas station. You fill me up with gas or I won't go. And every so often you're going to have to put tires on it. In other words, everything about a car or anything else is falling apart. The scientists call it dysenteropy. The universe is literally, the physical universe is falling apart. Always. It never builds up. When you drop a cup, it breaks into parts. It never comes together that way. The only exception to dysenteropy in the universe is life itself. Evolution is always building upward, for greater complexity. It's everything else in the universe is falling apart. There are counterforces. They're like an eddy in a stream. The stream is going one way, but the water along the side is going the other. Life is a countervailing force to the physical universe, and it is what creates it. It is that living life that's in everything, even the rocks. In your life, what you really need is guidance, right? Well, let's take a look at that word, that G, U, I, and dance. And this is what it stands for. God, you and I dance. This is a dance with the energy of God, which is in you, which is in everybody. This is a dance that you're doing that you call your life, and it's supposed to be fun. Some of you are old enough, remember Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers? I can see who's saying yes, and someone's like, who's that? Who's that people? The interesting thing, Fred Astaire was considered the best dancer of his time, without a doubt. But I want you to take a look at something else. Ginger Rogers, who danced with him, did everything Fred Astaire did, only she did it backwards and in high heels. So I don't know who the best dancer was, but life is a dance, and we're here to dance it. It's supposed to be fun. Now, you may or may not recognize the guy with the gray hair, the glasses, and the beard is Neil Donald Walsh. I had a really nice evening with him, and he said something in this meeting that later he put in one of his books, and I just love it. I think it really sets the tone. I'm going to tell you what he said then, but he also said something else I think is neat. He was on Larry King, and he was being interviewed, and the last question was, well, if God has a message for it in 2 minutes or 1 second, just give us the message. And here was the message from God through Neil Donald Walsh. It was, you've got me all wrong. And we have. But he said this night, and I want you to pay attention to it because it's very important to you. He said this: there is no blackboard in the sky that tells you what your purpose in life is. You get to decide what that purpose is. Folks, there is no grand design that says that you're supposed to be doing something. Now, before you came in, you had some goals. I will assure you that. You had a general purpose. I'll assure you that. But God doesn't care if you're a secretary, a doctor, or a bum. It doesn't make any difference. You are here for a mission. What if you see a man sitting in the doorway of a big building in New York, and he's drunk and he's disheveled, he looks just terrible, and he's sitting there, and then there's another man who's walking by him, who's in a business suit, who's a very successful person, and when you look at those two people, we put more value on the fellow in the tie than the one sitting there. But what if it was that that man who was that drunk came in with the purpose of teaching people how to love? And the man that passed him by every day finally said, I'm going to help this man. Who's the greater of the two? So we can never judge anybody, no matter what their circumstances are. Why are they doing this? Why does this person have this disease? Why are these happening? Because they're working through it. Because they came here to overcome that, if that's what they're doing. So we all have a purpose. And it's an individual, it's unique, and you don't have just one purpose. You may have an overarching purpose, but you can have lots of purposes, and you can change them anytime you want. You may have had one career and liked it and left and started something totally new. You may have been a real estate broker for 22 years and then decided to be a minister. It's a great way to change. Before that, I was in the retail business. But I don't believe in this staying in one job for the rest of your life. That's boring. So what are you doing? Are you having a boring life or are you having fun? Well, it really is your choice. In fact, life could be stated as a series of choices. Every choice you make is going to produce something. And the choices you make depends on the life you have depends on the choices you make. But remember this, you're going to make choices that are wrong, that are not what you want. But you're going to see that. You're going to be able to say, oh, that wasn't a good choice, so now I'm going to make another choice. You see, in every choice, no matter what happens, in every choice, you always have those letters in the middle. Oh, I see. So everything that happens is good. The things that happen that you want, they're good, obviously. And the things that happen that are what you don't want are there to tell you this is what you don't want. Abraham calls this contrast. We have to see what we don't want in order to see what we do want. So if we just see what we don't want and say, oh, isn't that interesting, and move on, we'll know more. And we won't have to struggle for 6 years over that so-called mistake that we made. The word sin, which is an English word, which is not a good translation for the word hamareto, which is the Greek word for it. It is a bad translation because that word means missing the mark. Actually, it means, in fact, the Hebrew word means the same thing. Failure to get the prize was an archery term. Failure to get the prize because you missed the mark. It's a mistake. Okay, I did that wrong, so what? Isn't that interesting? Now I'm going to do it another way, a way that'll work. And if I have to do it 15 times where it's not right, until I get the one I want. And never be upset by any of the choices I made. And if you want to be upset, That, of course, is your choice too. Enlightenment is the art of lightening up on yourself and everyone else. Living life as if it were fun, as if it were vacation, that you weren't trying to go someplace, but you were trying to have a good time while you were here. You'll be amazed at how much more of the things you want to happen will happen when you're willing to accept life as it is. And remember this, that God and Mr. Rogers love you just the way you are, and that God wants you to go where no one has ever gone before. Don't bore God by being like everybody else. He's already done that, or she's already done that. Be you. You have a unique DNA. You have unique fingerprints. You have a unique pattern in your eyes. You are totally and completely an individual, and yet you are made up of exactly what everybody else is made up, the same atoms. And the life you live are the choices you make, and it is up to you. And it's supposed to be fun, so I say to you, have fun. Thank you.
Now what?
There was a woman who did not appreciate the fact of the amount of weight she was carrying, and she wanted to be a much smaller size. So she bought a treadmill. Oh, I see a lot of hands going up. She bought a treadmill, and she didn't use it. She just bought it and let it sit there in her bedroom. And she was talking to one of her friends. He said, I bought this treadmill, and I have never used it, but I know that it works. I really know that it works because I lay my jeans on it, and they've gotten smaller and smaller. Now, you've been here through this 9-week period, and you've heard all that's been said, and guess what? None of it's going to work unless you do. Most of us are like the man who came home excited there in the bed with his paycheck, and he said, darling, guess what? I'm going to get a raise. My salary is going to be doubled. And she said, well, when does it take effect? He said, I didn't look at that. And he opened it up and looked at it, and it said, this raise will become effective when you do. Ooh. None of this works unless you work it. During the course, we've given you a series of tools that you see up here. Leading is meditating. If you will take the time, it's 15 minutes a day, to sit down quietly, even if you don't know how to meditate. We have meditation CDs, and there's lots of books on the subjects. But really, literally spend 15 minutes in a quiet place. If you say, well, I don't have enough time, you don't have enough time not to meditate. Martin Luther, the 16th century priest, who's credited with starting Protestantism, said that he had 17 hours of worth of work to do and only 8 hours to do it in, so he had better meditate for at least 7 of them. Because he knew after that much meditation, he would be so effective, he would be able to get 10 times as much. If you want more time in your life, if that's the only reason you do it, then meditate. Our minds are running all the time, 1,000 miles an hour, word after word after word after word. It's a stream, and there's no spaces in between. And even when we stop talking and someone else is talking, we're not really listening. We're making up what we're going to say next. It's going all the time. Well, the only way Spirit can get through to you is between the gaps in your words. And the longer those gaps, the more it gets through. And what meditation does is it gives you more gap time, because you get used to it. The people who are very, very afraid and very security conscious want to talk all the time. They have to just talk. They have to just talk. If someone leaves, they keep talking. That is a sign of being totally asleep. So learn to be quiet, even just sitting around and looking at the water or doing something without thinking about something. And then in a regular 15-minute session where you sit in a chair and you block out all the noises and you sit there and relax your body. There's a relaxation exercise on our meditation tapes that you can use to get yourself in that state. But do that every day for 15 minutes. Your life will change from that one thing. The second thing you see up there is the use of positive affirmations. All of you have been giving the card with the 12 affirmations. We have those and the subliminal tapes that go along with them. But using those tools on a regular basis begins to flow positive things into your mind. When you're saying a positive affirmation, you can't be thinking a negative thought. So at least for that few moments, you're pushing the negative thoughts out, which tend to come right back when you stop, but at least they get a little bit of a break. And the more you use those cards, the more you say those affirmations, the more you are switching yourself from the stream of negative consciousness and moving yourself slightly or a little more downstream towards a more positive consciousness. And the next thing in there is the use of a gratitude journal. You can use a paper journal or cards, and we have a computer journal. I know a couple of you are using that. But every day, taking time and writing down what you're grateful for. And it's not a speed contest to see how many things I can get on the list, how quick. It's putting one thing on the list and stopping and really feeling in your body how grateful you are that that's true. I'm grateful that I have all my five fingers on each hand. 10. I'm grateful for whatever it is you're grateful for. That, again, is forcing your mind to stay in a positive state. The people who are using them on the computer, they maybe get upset. They open the computer up, write a few things they're grateful for, and their whole attitude's changed just in that time. So using any kind of a gratitude journal is extremely important. And the next thing is to allow your life to be whatever it is. It's okay. Nothing is going to kill you. Your body's going to die, yes. We're all going to leave here sometime. Some are going to be here a short time, and some are going to be here a long time. What's important while you're here in time space is that you get the most joy out of this you can, that you learn how to express who you really are in this particular place. And if you understand that there's nothing you have to do, and yet you could do anything you can focus your mind on, life becomes a joy instead of a drudge. So that's part of it, allowing life to be whatever it is. It's there now. It doesn't mean you have to live with it. If you married the wrong person, change your attitude before you get a divorce. Otherwise, you're going to marry the same person again. Different looks, but the same person. Change how you feel, and one or two things will happen. That person will also change, or they'll leave, or you'll leave. But first, before you do anything, change what's inside. When you're upset and angry about a situation, always get your state of mind right before you do anything. If you do it in anger, it's always going to be wrong. So it is this ability to allow. And the last thing on the list, and the most important probably, is the practice of pivoting. When you're coming up to this negative situation, like what we talked about in the film tonight, just accepting it and turning your thoughts downstream towards slightly, you don't have to go all the way to the most positive person in the world, just slightly better. Because every time you make that pivot, every time you make that turn, you are training your mind to do that. And after a while, it becomes almost automatic. You may say, oh, and then say, oh yeah, I'm pivoting now, and change it. It does that quickly, you can make the change. And that's the art of pivoting. If you will do those things, even if you do just one of them, your life will change positively. If you should happen to do them all, you say, well, that's a lot of time, a lot of effort. You'll have 10 times more time to do the things you want to do and less time to do the things that are just useless. And most of us are spending our life doing things that don't matter to us and anybody else. If we would just use the energy that we were given by God to focus on making our life better. If your life gets better, it affects all the people around you. You cannot give someone love if it isn't in your heart. If you don't love yourself, what you give somebody is a tragedy. If you don't love yourself and you're trying to love someone else, you're hurting yourself and you're hurting them too. Because deep down inside, we all know what unconditional love is, even though we don't get much of it in this world. There's only one source of unconditional love, and that's within you. Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within you. So that's where your unconditional love comes. And if you want more love in your life, give more love. And the more you give it, the more you'll feel it, and the better your life will be. So, are you going to practice? Well, I'm not going to call you up a week from now. Have you practiced lately? But maybe somebody will. Maybe your soul will say, it's time. It's time now.